Hey guys, this is miicrow here. I wanted to do a Halloween bug roundup for a bunch of interactions that you may or may not have known about. First up here, we have Ankh. The center of attention bonus is multiplicative, not additive, which means that all incoming heal effects are going to be boosted by Ankh. This isn't normally how Gear operates and makes Ankh super powerful fundamentally. And this change where they've made the incoming heal bonus go from 50% to 25%, I would view as a buff because it allows you to be more self-sustaining and less reliant on heals while still allowing you to take advantage of Ankh to significantly boost the effectiveness of incoming heals onto yourself, which allows you to do some really crazy combos and still be able to live off of health pots, which is very nice for a lot of modes. Next up, we have Tumbler Feet Wraps here with Shirking Blessing. The Shirking Blessing effect is the only Shirking Heals effect that doesn't have a cooldown on it. So we could really take advantage of this and use it versus effects that proc or that can hit you multiple times, and that Shirking effect will be applied to that. So much like how Refreshing Word used to be a very hard counter to Blunderbuss in terms it would give you all your cooldowns back basically instantly, the Shirking Blessing will apply to off every single Blunderbuss pellet too, which means that you could be healing for 4 to 8k per dodge versus a blunderbuss alone, which is absolutely ridiculous. And it makes this artifact basically a must-have versus those blunderbuss-oriented builds. So if you're playing in a spot where you're versus a blunderbuss, this is very good. And if you're playing in PvP or PvE versus a mob that's throwing out a bunch of attacks, like think of the little flowers in the new dungeon, you're able to dodge all of those and heal for a ton because all of those have individual effects that you're dodging itself, and that will proc each off each individual time and heal you for a lot more than a lot of people realize it will. Next up, we have Refreshing Ward. Refreshing Ward actually turns out to still be in the game and is still upgradable to 700 Gearscore. You just have to get the PvP heavy reward track, upgrade this, and you basically just have a bist out heavy set that not a lot of people know about, that is really good for any tanky build or really any support build that is really reliant on for one weapon for cooldowns. So for all the Flail players out here, this is actually probably the best set that you can get for Flail right now, albeit Shirking Heals is looking like it's going to get nerfed in the near future, so maybe don't invest too much into it, but at least play around with it in OPR and 3v3 where you have that gear score scaling to take advantage of. Next up here, we want to talk about healers. Healers have a fundamental problem in New World where they have to be playing light. And the reason why they kind of have to be playing light to be effective as a healer is because if they aren't, they're going to be missing out on this outgoing healing bonus that is multiplicative. So we talk about Ankh, we talk about how this is really strong because this bonus is multiplicative. The same thing applies to the outgoing healing bonus from being light. So if you're trying to make a paladin style healer work and you're trying to play medium, you're just not going to be as effective as an AoE healer. There's a reason why that most builds that are playing Flail right now and are trying to heal are getting around 400k health in the war versus AoEs are hitting 8 to 10 mil, and this is one of the main fundamental reasons why. So if you are trying to play a paladin style healer, although it is very fun and is a different mix-up compared to a normal style healer, I would say it's inoptimal unless you find out a way to make it work in light, which is very tricky because you want to have a shield with this, so you're basically locked into running featherweight with a kite shield or some other kind of shield that will be effective for your build, and it makes it very sketchy to actually use this kind of build super effectively. Uh, Next up, this isn't exactly related to the video, but if you aren't sub, please sub, because only between a fourth and a fifth of people that actively watch these videos are subscribed, which is a little bit lower than I like, but we just hit 3k, which is actually insane. Like, I don't think I have met 3k people in my life. I probably met 3k people in my life, but like, you get the idea. Like, it's a very big number, but we can push that much higher if people took the time to subscribe that actively are watching the videos. So next up here we have a dark matter farm. This is something that not a lot of people know. A shout out to Mansky for making a video about it. But basically in the top right corner of the map in Morningdale, there's this cave that you can go to, and you could still get access to the new gear sets for the Woodgrain gear, which previously was farmable from a spot in Baines, which was located in Genesis right about here. People were farming this set because it was basically BIS for a lot of PvP and PvE builds that were playing heavy, and now that spot has basically moved to be up in the cave where Mansky shows it off in his video here. So, like, I would recommend checking out this video, and I'll put it in the description, but it's a good source of dark matter. You could apparently get 100 plus per hour. I think it's a little bit of exaggerated, but it is very good in terms of acquiring that gear quickly at a minimum. Next up here, we have a trick with Spear. Spear is actually able to lob basically infinite jabs due to this aggressive maneuver passive. So if you're playing Scorpion Sting and you would like to throw a jab every 3 to 4 seconds because you either have horrible aim like I do or you just like to pull people in all the time and think it's funny, you can do that. Just take advantage of aggressive maneuvers and make sure you dodge before every single attack that you do, and you're basically going to be able to go infinite with cooldown cycling, which is why I built a tree like this, and I've been using this as kind of a fun tank tree as well as a sort of disruptor tree in my OPRs. This is a kind of a weird trick as well, but the most damage spec in the game right now is actually a heavy spec, which is very, very weird from a war perspective. If you have the magnetic gauntlets, which I've spent 35 tries trying to get and was not able to, you have the ability to pump out the most DPS out of any class in the game because you're able to go infinite with your combo of just spamming abilities. The trick here is to use something called Alactritous punishment that not a lot of people realize exists, that only applies to ranged weapons like the Ice Gauntlet, the Void Gauntlet, and the Fire Staff, which will allow you to basically do 20% more damage at all times to PvP players because haste effects are actually super, super present now with the introduction of the Flail, because the Flail is giving a 5-second AoE haste. There's a lot of Life Staff abilities that are giving haste. Ice Gauntlet's giving haste. A lot of classes have built-in haste. And haste in general is just super fun to play with, so you're just able to take advantage of people running this haste effect and just do 20% more base damage, which outclasses every other damage-oriented effect in the game right now, and is something that you should definitely take advantage of. This next tips applies mostly to ranged players. If you're like a musket or you're a bow that likes to light attack for some reason, this 25 strength bonus actually applies to ranged weapons, so it is actually optimal from a DPS standpoint if you're running one of those ranged weapons to use the 25 strength bonus. This will only apply to your auto attacks, it won't apply to the actual abilities themselves on the musket. So if you're going for like a stopping powder, like a powdered burn, it won't apply, but if you're using shooter stance or you're using a trap itself, it actually will apply for some reason. So you will be able to take advantage of that and just gain an extra 5% DPS for free by just jumping in 15 points into there, because most of these musket ranged oriented builds are running the attuned leather pants right now, which just give you a bunch of bonus stats. So it's not a very high cost, and it's a very big benefit for those builds. So it's something I would definitely recommend taking advantage of. And lastly here, this Alacritous punishment effect actually updates live on your gear pieces. So if you're using an Ice Gauntlet and you throw out an Ice Storm and someone walks into that and they have haste, they're going to start taking more damage, and if they don't have haste, they'll just not take as much damage. Where this is really nice is most people have haste, but typically with Ice Gauntlet effects, you have to be very careful because it will snapshot the current damage and you just won't be able to take advantage of this. So this is just an easy way to get more damage. If you're newer to the game, don't really worry about this too much. It's just a weird bug interaction with New World, where say if you had 15% in power and you cast an Ice Storm, that 15% in power would would apply for the entire duration of the Ice Storm. This is one of those effects that you don't have to worry about that, which is super nice. And lastly, if you are a Flail player, there are two perks or two, I guess, abilities that you could take advantage of a cool effect that I think is unintended, but if you shield when you pop an ability, for the first second of casting that animation, before you can actually cancel out of that ability, you won't take any stam damage, but you'll be able to block frontal incoming attacks. This applies to both Vortex, I believe, and applies to Barrage. I still am yet to test Smite with this effect, but it's super, super consistent to apply, and it's very good in terms of increasing your survivability, because it basically turns these abilities into a mini invincibility effect that will only apply for about a second, but it could be really, really strong and is a very good tech ability to being able to survive big clump wipes. With that being said, let me know if I missed anything or if you guys have any other bugs or information to share in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Peace out.